Good evening. You're listening to the Xtreme Movie Show Sci-Fi Special Edition. Tonight's movie, Soylent Green with Charlton Heston. I'm your host, Rob. Co-hosting with me tonight is Dr. Venkman. Good evening, sir. Well, it's good to see that you're on. I know that you had another house call that you had to do. Is it more calves this time, or what farm animal of the evening is it that you're delivering? I see. And of course, they're saying they can't hear you again, and I have no hell idea why. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Well, I'll just keep talking for a moment while people file into the stream here, and we'll just double check here. But I see that everything is good for you. That being said, you're in Google Hangouts. Say something. That's cute. Still no duck. Well, that's not cool because the fact that we're not, if we were in Discord, this wouldn't be an issue, but you can't get into Discord, can you? Well, then do it, and we'll switch over. Actually, we can't because we're live, so just sit there and enjoy. So anyway, the dog's here talking in my ear. He has a medical emergency. Therefore, the satellite link up that we have here to the underground bunker in the Pine Hills Palace has been broken. It's been deleted, if you will, and that's unfortunate because he said that there was a sale on Soylent Green up there in the gentle Midwest, as we like to say. And like the movie we talked about last night with William Shatner Impulse, Mr. Matt Stone. He really wanted to be on tonight, and this was his movie, The Doctor's Soylent Green with Heston, so I wanted to mention some of the key points that he had brought up for it. First of all, I love science fiction, and the fact that Charlton Heston was in it is just bonus material because Charlton Heston is one of our favorite actors. For me, not only in science fiction, but in some of the bigger films, he literally is an icon. As a matter of fact, he's one of the original Chin of the Week winners, so congrats to Charlton Heston for it. But the movie itself is a take on early 70s, late 60s science fiction. It's based off of a story called Make Room by Harry Harrison, a science fiction author who to this day has got a lot of material that's pretty interesting reading, including the Stainless Steel Rat novels and War of the Chore, I think it's called, about some killer worms, I believe. And why none of this stuff never ever made it to the Sci-Fi Channel or big screen, I have no idea. But it's a story, Soylent Green, about overpopulation. So in the 50s, you had Godzilla, actually, some people would say represents the United States being an evil monster, and radiation is what it was born out of with the atomic bombs. So it's an allegory. But there's a lot of basically eco science fiction, eco terrorism, kind of in a way where it's about no, the world's can't handle man abusing it. Therefore, we're just going to have to take drastic measures. And so Soylent Green has a government that's gotten so big in the United States with all this massive overpopulation, the population can't be fed. So what happens? Well, that's what the whole movie's about, and it's basically a detective movie with the idea of what would the world be like if it's overpopulated. And what's neat about this film, it's kind of low budget in that it doesn't look like there's a lot of special effects, but the set pieces are pretty spectacular. It's pretty neat. So Charlton Heston starts off as a detective. He's looking to actually find the murderer of an important bigwig that's on a Soylent Green Corporation. He goes to the dude's house, and what comes with the house, besides it being a nice mansion, that's really an apartment, is, a woman, because that's a perk there. Water, real nice water, plumbing, all those things, air conditioning. Um, so you get this big juxtaposition between what's going on if you're the one percenters and then everybody else, which are sleeping in the streets, they're sleeping in stairwells, there's riot police every day, and then people are fortunate if they're able to get enough Soylent Green to make it through. Where's the beef? Yeah, just Ed. We're going to talk about that because Soylent Blue is the next question. If we know what Soylent Green is, which is people, that's the whole secret to it, is that they took all the extra bodies, ground them up, and that was your food source. Soy, like a protein source, allows you to live. Carbs won't do it. You definitely need a little bit of protein, but there's a lot of really neat set pieces in here. I think it was on the Paramount backlot that this is filmed. Heston's starting to get in his older age acting then, but it's got Edward G. Robinson in it, who plays Saul, his older friend, and they share a room together, and he remembers the way things used to be, and he also remembers how to kind of like fix things a little bit with your hand. It's still in the analog world back then, even though at the time they filmed it, it was supposed to be, I think, 2022. So it was interesting for a movie that's about 50 years old to see what they thought of the future with the overpopulation. So let's talk about that. Overpopulation. It's Malthusian economics, where a guy, I want to say in the 1800s, decided that, hey, if you take a look at the world's population on a curve, and then you'd sit there and say, okay, here's the world's supplies of food on a curve. Hey, here's where the two meet. Once we get past this mythical number of people, we'll have too many people on there, and therefore we need to induce somehow, some way, population control. And so I think a lot of people disguise things into it. So some people think of a lot of modern day conspiracies, it's all about population control. A lot of people have taken it to heart in the 20s and 30s when we had depressions and whatnot and food lines, that this is the beginning of the end. And it's a very dystopian kind of frame of mind that people get into, but there's certainly hysteria about it. And in Soylent Green, you see that with the everyday people. So Heston's walking around, he's trying to figure out what's going on with this. His boss is basically like, man, you got to find out what's going on. This guy's on the Soylent Green Corporation, he's on the board. Well, it's obviously a political thing that he finds out it's much bigger than him. There's like a book that's missing, it's got some info on it. They end up finding it. Books are a rarity. Everything is in just short supply. So whenever you have the government involved, typically you end up getting all these shortages, you get rationing. In many ways, this movie is like an allegory for what could happen today if a lot of other things were taken and confiscated and the government was put in charge of doing it. So we could actually, if Doctor was available to speak tonight, we would argue the merits of whether a big government or a smaller government would help with an overpopulation crisis if fundamentally you believe that that's true. I do not. But that was really, really huge in the 60s and 70s, and even to this day with some people about saying we're hurting the planet, we're running out of water, we're running out of space. I would disagree to it. But that being said, it's still an interesting movie because you get the political aspect of it. You get the fact that there's powers that are bigger than just being elected, as the guy who gets murdered early on finds out. He just had a disagreement and they whack him. Once Charlton, because Charlton's the man, once he figures out kind of what's going on, he's getting closer to the source of what's really happening, which is what is Soylent Green. He basically gets somebody hired to kill him, and that person is none other than Rifleman Chuck Connors. Rifleman was a great show back in the day about a single father and raising a son. It's got a great opening where he's firing this custom kind of rifle. It's black and white. He's got a great screen presence on there, so he's a great kind of hitman to chase out Charlton Heston. Yeah, it's nice to be the police, Ed Brewer is saying in Channel. Absolutely, absolutely agreed. If you were on the police, you kind of got a little bit of perks. I mean, the movie's got a little bit of a romance thing where Charlton Heston goes back and he's checking up on the house prostitute or whore or hooker or furniture or whatever you want to call her, the woman who basically said, yeah, I'll stick with whoever's owning the apartment is, and he's checking up on her, and he's freaking out because, like, he's not exposed to all this stuff. He grew up like everybody else with ration lines and all that, and he was fortunate to be made a member of the police. So he's kind of a government agent, but not really. So he's caught in between. So that's the whole struggle of the movie. What should he do? Well, his partner Saul, his friend, I should say, kind of is looking in at stuff and figuring out what's going on, and they figure out something bad's going on with the Soylent Green Corporation, this gigantic megacorp. And you always hear this, that the giant megacorporations are evil, they control everything, and to a certain extent it's true, but the question is what allows them to get that large, and that's the government. So really the government's involved in this as well. It's not just the court. But there's an interesting scene in here about things that aren't available anymore and how you can miss them. And I'm thinking particularly of the scene where Heston brings some strawberries and some pencils and paper back to Saul, his buddy, who is Edward G. Robinson, who's deaf at the time, actually, and this is his last film. He's dying of cancer, and he would die pretty soon after this movie was made. He gives him these little gifts, the pencils, the papers, the strawberries, and Edward G. Robinson, it's like he cries, Saul does, because it's so rare, and he knows it. And it's just a really neat kind of bonding experience that these two have. It's a real nice emotional kind of connection between two friends, one who's really old and one who's middle-aged. And doesn't see that the world was any different than what he's grown up accustomed to, whereas Saul does. So that's kind of neat. But then Saul discovers what the secret of Soylent Green is, and he's so overwrought, he's just distraught, he's beside himself. they have these chambers that you're allowed to go get yourself killed to, and of course put on by Soylent Green Corporation, because that's an easy way to get your source instead of going and drifting and having bodies being brought to you. Well, people can come to you and pay you to kill them, so you're getting not only the body as your resource, you're also getting money with it as well. So the scene that really got me when I saw this as a kid, because I didn't understand what was going on, is like, what the hell is Saul doing, going and voluntarily having himself put to sleep? They do it in a real touching way where they let him pick like some theme music, they let him pick some theme video to it. So they give him like some wine or something to drink, and he lays down and he's crying in tears, watching clips of the way the world used to be, like deer running in a path and some real nice. I think it's Mozart that's playing in the background. So it's a really great scene. And Charlton Heston at this time is kind of figuring out what's going on. He's running to go find Saul, and he sees it, and it's too late for him to do anything to save Saul. And he's watching him dying, and he's like, Saul, Saul, I get it, I understand it now. And he's just overcome with emotion. And this kind of sets up the end of the movie, where he's going to the Soylent Green Corporation. And this is where Heston kind of goes into ninja mode, where he's hiding between stuff, and he's getting on the top of the vans, trying to sneak into the corporation, and you're just watching all this go along. But in the meantime, he's being hunted by Chuck Connors. And so when he gets in there, you see the stupid tablets, the crackers. I think there was different Soylents too, not just Soylent Green. There was like Soylent crumbs and other things that you could get. And he gets through all that, and then of course a couple guys discover him there, and then he finds out Soylent Green is people, and of course it's been made fun of ever since then about it. But I have to be honest, when I saw this movie as a kid, I had no idea what the hell was going on. I didn't know what the answer to Soylent Green was, and when it was found out that it was people being made into food, I was disgusted. As an adult, it's very ironic, it's very cynical and bitter, and it's kind of funny in a way, but it's an interesting message about overpopulation. So basically, you get the kind of the dystopian ending there, where Heston gets shot by him and ends up going to the church, and nothing really changes at the end. Does it taste like chicken? No, it probably tastes like cardboard. It probably tastes like a Ritz cracker that's stale, that doesn't have the salt on it. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, Big Brother is always watching, and yeah, they're always adding up data on you too. With your phones, with your games, with all the quizzes you take on Twitter and online, with all the stuff that you listen to. Hello, algorithms and AI. But yeah, I thought this was a pretty interesting movie because the concept is overpopulation. So to me, this is real sci-fi. Dr. Venkman was telling me that he really enjoyed it because of the performance, and he wasn't sure what was going on. Like, what the fuck is he killing himself for? And I agree. Why would you do that? But it was interesting in that they took these things seriously, and they were like the killing yourself, the one percenters versus the 99 percenters, no middle class. That's very apparent in here. And frankly, in the 70s, New York was not a good place. You can make up whatever you word about it, but a lot of major cities weren't, like Chicago, Los Angeles. They continue not to be. You can argue whether they are or they aren't. But it's interesting that 50 years ago, the same cities that are doing bad are just as bad now today. Although, to New York's credit, it had gotten better in the 80s and 90s, and only then has since gone downhill. But Chicago's always kind of been on the seedy side, and LA, same thing. And if you listen to our earlier sci-fi stream, where we're doing Top 10 Tuesdays, and we're talking about 1987 with Englentine from I Love Comics, we talked about They Live being one of the best movies of that year. And actually, you get to see almost a similar type theme as far as the one percenters, which are the aliens, and the 99 percenters, and what's happening in the city of LA. So it's pretty interesting to see that there's good movies like this that still have a message that are applicable to things going on today. I would love to see an update kind of to Soylent Green, but since everybody knows the answer, I don't know how they would do it. But I think the population idea in itself is faulty to begin with, the argument. Obviously, efficiency of resources and all that, it's not linear. It's not as simple as taking population resources, hitting a point, and saying, okay, this is where we're going to have bad things. Nature's population, if you look at it, goes up and down. There's natural disasters, not as apparent as taking lives as they are now, but it still always happens. And we do a better job in society of actually having, like, more efficient ways of producing food for less cost than more people can get. So really, I would say you didn't start seeing fat people in general in the population until the 70s, so it's kind of ironic that this movie came out after it did. The government in the United States is pushing the 4322 diet, which is mostly carbs and fats and bad stuff for you, and all of a sudden everybody gets fat, and we're talking about all the delicious stuff on snacking it, like candies and popcorn and stuff that's not necessarily good for you nutritionally, but at least as a treat. Now that we've had a generation of people on it, you see what it's like, and let's think of the beginning prefix of the word Soylent Green. Soy. What's the one thing we're talking about today with everybody? Soy boys. Too much soy, reduction in testosterone is the idea. So the estrogen in your body, you have a tendency to act a little bit more like a female if you're a male. Some people say that's a conspiracy, and I don't know. I don't want this to turn into a conspiracy show, but Soylent Green, great movie with Charlton Heston in it and all that. So, Doctor, I'm listening in my other monitor if you're able to say anything to me so I can relay it to the people listening in channel. Well, the question that the doctor just mentioned to me, I'd like to share with everybody is that, well, do you think that the people who carted him off believed him when he was saying Soylent Green is people, Soylent Green is man, or not? And I would say, you know what? I bet they know what it is. They're government agents. I work for the corporation. They all know. So people just wanted to get their fix and are too weak and too tired to do it. And yeah, I agree with Ed Brewer's saying the same thing in channel. He's saying they didn't care. Absolutely right. And that's what happens when you allow other people to be responsible and beholden to satisfying your needs, whether it's money or whether it's food or whether it's this and that. So as we speak right now, it's bright and sunny. It's about 85, 90 degrees here, about 6:30 in the Eastern time here in Central Florida. The Pinehurst Palace, we've prepared the grounds. Daisy and Max, the German Shepherds, running around patrolling it. I've called them inside because we're supposed to be getting a Category 5 hurricane, which, again, conspiracy theory, it may not even hit us, or we might only get some Category Level 1 winds. It could change. It could be different. But the hysteria of the past week, the nonstop, constant coverage of it has got everybody, or a lot of people, in a frenzy in all the stores. You literally don't have any food on the shelves. People talk about price gouging. People talk about all these things that are bad and awful. And it's just one of those things where anybody that's a true Floridian from Central Florida, like Angleton and like myself, like some others listening here on the Xtreme Movie Show, they know to get prepared. They're pretty much prepared ahead of time. They don't get involved in hysteria. I think that's one of the things we have to ask ourselves, and whether or not you believe in population or you consider yourself an eco-friendly person or anything green, no pun intended with the green movement. Soylent Green is an interesting movie, and if you haven't seen it, it's worth watching just for the fact that it treats an idea, I think, seriously about science fiction overpopulation, whether you agree with it or not. It's saying he's not worried there in Tampa. The fear mongering is terrible. Yeah, absolutely right. I know people over there around one of the country clubs, and I can tell you that in those old homes in Florida, you wouldn't be worried at all, only if it was coming through the Gulf, though. What were you going to say, Doctor? Hmm. Yeah, I think we mentioned it briefly earlier that Edward G. Robinson was played Saul, kind of Chuck Heston's older friend there, Saul. He was deaf when this movie was going on for the most part, so what was interesting about it, if you go back knowing this, watching some of the scenes, you can see where Edward G. Robson's just kind of doing his own thing like an older person, and you think he's doing a good job of just listening to Heston speak his lines. But really, from what I understand, researching this movie a little bit, is that there was this physical type of rhythm where, like, if Heston would walk over to this place, he would say this line, and so there's this back and forth kind of timing physically that you'd have to try. It reminds me of having your cues and your stage prompts if you're speaking and all that too. Not only do you have to know the lines, you also can memorize them by physically doing certain actions and moving around, and also if people aren't in the right spots, it can throw you off. So it's interesting to see somebody like Edward G. Robinson, who's was known as such the heavy in a lot of old Bogart films and other things too. Here he is playing like an advisor type role, and I think he's very needed in this movie. He gives that perspective that some of us needed to give Heston, who's kind of caught in the middle of both worlds. Yeah, he was in Key Largo. Yeah, and Ed's saying, and I'm not looking at it, but he's going, that was Cagney. I was thinking. I thought Cagney is the say you guy, Shay, but it was Edward G. Robinson, I believe, in this one. Am I correct, Doctor? Okay, yeah, Cagney was in a bunch too. He was a real good heavy also, but yeah, we'll talk more about Cagney later, and also as we do plan on recovering some Bogart films, some classic films on the stream soon. With the Christmas season coming up, we'll definitely be hearing more about Edward G. Robinson. So as I'm listening in my monitor to the satellite feed away from the Pinehurst Palace, somewhere in the Midwest, Doctor, any final thoughts you want me to communicate? Yeah, he says stay away from Soylent Green, so that brings us to the last thing. What's Soylent Blue? It's that damn stupid soy fake burger that, is real popular now. So I am not a financial advisor. Therefore, I can give you financial advice and not get in trouble legally, whether you choose to take it or not. Avoid Beyond Meat or anything that has to do with that. They're overvalued, like Tesla. It's not a good product. I've not tried one myself, but the people I know around my work that have tried it see it's really greasy and not that tasty and not that good. So, well, the green burgers in Wisconsin, maybe they're made out of seaweed. Who knows? Seaweed's actually pretty healthy and pretty tasty if done right, but still. Yeah, the problem with plant-based protein, just if for you nutrition freaks out there, maybe we'll cover this on snacking it actually. The problem with the nutritional requirements when you replace your protein with soy or plant-based type products, like say pea protein in a smoothie, is you miss out on some key aminos. And so proteins being built up of a bunch of amino acids, you really have to supplement heavily. And even then, you don't get quite the efficacy of them getting digested in you, especially if you have some sort of digestive condition, or maybe you're older, or woman versus man, you have little differences in there too, nutritionally speaking. So nutritionally, make sure you have a good steak once in a while. Maybe make sure you have some seafood. Some people say don't have the fish because there's mercury, only have farm raised, whatever. But have something good. Have something worth discussed on snacking it. I mean, I hear it's good, but why? Because of the hype, Ed Brewer. It's like decaf. Absolutely disgusting. No way. The red meat is very good for you, and the whole cholesterol thing and all that is just absolutely nuts. I eat a steak a week at least. I eat very healthy. I like to indulge every now and then, but numbers are all fine. Well, moderation may be key for some people, but I would also suggest too that financially speaking, like I say, these things are overvalued. Um, Avoid the financial storm coming. Get your 5-10% in gold or silver, and let's see what happens, because everyone's talking about this being the next big disaster. But I will tell you, with the election coming up, you're going to start seeing some interesting things too. And I would tell you, knowing many educationers personally, all the food that gets wasted, there's no such thing as hungry people. Yeah, it's with the election coming up, the last thought the doctor wanted me to share was that Soylent Green was based, I believe, in 2022. So with the next election, we've got 3 years to prepare. So get to prepping. All right, for the doctor, for Eglantine, check him out on I Love Comics. Check him out on The Homegrown Tourist. Check him out on, I believe it's Old Man Comics. The guy's putting out 3 or 4 videos a day. The guy is a video producing machine. He is the curator of comics. He is the shadow band singer. He is the Prince of Pine Hills. That is Anglican I'm discussing. For him, for Doctor, for myself, stay extreme. Cheers, guys. You've been authenticated. And testing in 3, 2, 1. Sound bit number 1. Whammy. Did you hear that, Ed? Please, please tell me you heard it. I get the LL, so I'm hoping you did. Okay, testing soundbite number 2 in 3, 2, 1. This is the Summon the Gimp music. Okay. Random electronic music test in 3, 2, 1. Oh, he's not hearing it. Damn it. That's upsetting. That's distressing. Nothing. Okay, Ed. We're working on that. All right, guys. Have a good night. And at 6:30 now Eastern Time, we're going to be setting up for the live commentary watch along of Rambo with Eglantine and myself. That should be going up approximately about 7. So look for the tweets from Ian and myself. We're going to be setting up here too. The original Rambo, because we plan on doing a review of Last Blood as it comes out. So we're going to do First Blood tonight. So be on the look for that too. Thank you for the sweet baritone. Some days I just want to do a stream and I want to talk like this. And I've often said if we do a ladies only stream, I'll just kind of try to calm down a little bit and just talk like this. Yeah, it's the ladies' man. Tonight we're going to be talking about Soylent Green with Charlton Heston on the Xtreme Movie Show. SciFi Special Edition, Sunday night. All right, guys, good night.